Welcome everybody to the Tier List Friday with Flame
and Marcelian.
Ha! And what are we gonna do today, buddy?
Oh shit, man, we're gonna talk about healers in Mythic Plus because goddammit, people want to hear about healers, man.
I mean, there's a lot of community perception on some specs, and we're gonna break it down with, as we do every Friday, looking at the warcraft logs. But this time we'll also have a little bit of a nudge.
Yeah, there's a little bit of extra things. So okay, a quick disclaimer, guys: the logs that we're basing our tier list on, which weren't live last week because
move along.
Are based on the top 95 percentile of the players, which means that the logs came from the people that know to play these specs the best, right? Yeah. No errors, no fuck-ups, no nothing, because you can play anything that you want. So, disclaimer, play what you find fun. We're talking about performance at the very top, at like, I don't know, keys 20s and higher, I guess, something like that. And so we're also, you know, going to take a look at a little bit on Radar.io and see how people actually play these specs in terms of popularity, not in performance, but mostly popularity. So let's hit it, man.
Yeah, let's hit it. But before you hit it, you also make sure you hit that subscribe and notification bell if you love this type of content. This is our twisted, more colorful way of doing tier lists. And once again, don't necessarily base your decision on picking a main or something on this. It's just to take a look at what's happening.
You know where you're standing, you know?
All right, let's kick it off. Let's kick it off with the first one. So, Discipline Priest. Now, I gotta start it off with Discipline Priest because it's my all-time favorite healer since I think Warlords of Draenor. I think it was the first implementation of attunement, because prior to that, Discipline Priests were always known for the, you know, shieldy, bubbly healing spec, just absorb a lot. Now, that it can still be the case in raids, but when we're talking Mythic Plus, you gotta love the fact that I believe Discipline Priest has the best implementation of dealing damage while healing, right? And this makes it really, really efficient. You cannot overheal too much because you heal through your damage. And also, I think it has one of the best kits in defensive damage reduction cooldowns ever.
I think so, because if you think about it, well, first of all, let's not forget that bursting, Marcelian's favorite mechanic, BFA can now be dispelled. Mass dispelled and individually dispelled, so that makes priests healers in general a lot better.
Yeah.
And damage reduction cooldowns are essentially the best cooldowns that a healer can have, because it's always better to prevent damage from hitting your target than not.
Spamming shit.
And you have pain suppression for your tank for those big chunky heals, because we know tanks are getting trucked this expansion hard. It's the kite meta right now for tanks. And obviously Dome is always good.
Dome,
for like prideful, you know.
And also like when she hits the fan for the whole group, Rapture can really buff up your shields as well. And also the Power Infusion Legendary, which is pretty fucking great.
Give me haste. I want haste.
Yeah. I give to you haste, and I get some haste, and you know
it's about sharing.
It's a haste. It's a haste party. That being said, the only, I think, problem that I faced personally with Discipline Priest is like, some tanks don't know how this works, and they don't do the proper pulls for you to deal damage, because you have to deal damage constantly, especially in dungeons, to maintain that, you know, HPS for the whole group.
And there's nothing to do damage with, there's no healing.
Yeah, and it's not the easiest healer to play. I would give it that. It's pretty rough to get into, but once you do get into, things become really clear, and it becomes super fun to heal. One of the most engaging healers to have in all content.
I think Discipline Priest might be one of the best healers to have with a group that knows because if people fuck up, it's very hard for Discipline Priest to come back. But if they don't fuck up, the damage that Discipline Priest brings and the efficiency in all of its healing and its kit just makes the run faster.
Of course. Now, where should we put this?
It's undeniable, man. I think it goes strictly into S tier. There are a lot of classes right now that perform really well. We're not talking about popularity here, because we know at the top the max players. It's different. There's a couple of Discipline Priests in the top 100, quite a few actually.
It's different. We'll get to those, but definitely an S tier. Even judging by our own personal fun times with the spec as well, so we put it up there for sure. All right, let's move along to
the Holy Paladin, man.
The Holy Paladin, like,
and man, so this is okay. When we were in beta, people were testing out Holy Paladin. I think at one point people said that Holy Paladin might be one of the worst healers.
It was at the beginning of alpha, because we were transitioning from the Glimmer build from BFA, which was super high octane, fast paced.
The talents were changed around. This didn't seem like that build.
Yeah, you were missing the haste. Holy Avenger, I believe, was the haste one that was changed. And you didn't have the mini Bloodlust, let's say, going into the alpha, and everybody was a little bit scared.
But now, Glimmer is back, man, and honestly,
it's strong as fuck, dude.
It's the shit right now. The build style is Well, the build is kind of similar. You just spam Crusader Strike and Holy Dawn, or Light of Dawn, and Holy Shock, and you get a lot of glimmers out. It does the most amount of damage out of all the tanks. Yeah, all of the healers, like by a large margin.
The tanks probably.
Yeah, probably the tanks. Probably prowlers.
It's super high damage for a healer, and also super efficient with the glimmer build. I mean, it's sort of like still fulfills that fantasy we got used to in BFA. Yeah. Just being up
you are
front.
In melee a lot.
Yeah, you're a plate player. First of all, you're up front with the tank over there. Just melee, Crusader striking, Holy Shacking, and all that. It's super fun to play. I love the glimmer build back in BFA.
It's actually stronger now with the legendary that leaves a shield on.
Yes.
And we've talked about it. Absorbs are probably one of the most efficient way of healing because you cannot really overheal. So it's still there even if it's at the target is at max HP.
Now, I think I would say if we were to pick like a con to it, maybe the fact that it's still a Paladin. It's pretty low mobility still.
Yeah, it's low mobility.
And sometimes probably new players coming into Holy Paladin trying the Glimmer build, they kind of tend to have a bit of a problem on healing the others. Not so much in Mythic Plus, more in raids, but still, yeah. Like the thing with the range, right? You have to make sure that because you are capable of healing all of your party, is just a little bit counterintuitive when playing a healer.
I think because you're playing Glimmer and you're not playing Beacon of Virtue, you kind of have to hit everybody with Light of Dawn, so a little bit of a positioning might be necessary, but again, you still have Glimmer that spreads healing everywhere. And Holy Paladin is actually based on Radar.io, the second most popular healer, and he's above +20. That doesn't mean it's like the second best healer, but it is very popular probably because Devotion Aura,
of course,
and all of the cooldowns,
and all the damage. It has bigger damage than Discipline, right? So it's definitely. Where would you put it?
I think it's still S tier, my man.
Still S tier. So there you go.
I think it's a little bit better. Apparently, judging by the logs, it's a little bit better than Discipline Priest, but it's still up there.
It also the damage factor really has to weigh a lot here because in Mythic Plus, everybody needs to do damage. Not only the DPS, the tank needs to do damage, and the healer, especially the healer, needs to do a lot of damage. And these two specs right now are dealing insane amounts. Holy Paladin just maybe a tiny bit more than this.
I've been looking at some logs, man. It seems like Holy Paladin has the potential to do triple the damage of most healers.
Yeah, but nevertheless, man, it's still, again, this is based on the logs and a little bit looking at Rare.io, but also if you were to factor in our opinions and our experiences with these specs, both are S tier for sure, and would be fun as hell to play. You can push a lot of content.
They have good kits for a low number of people. But we are moving into the other Holy healer.
All right, the Holy Priest. Now, you remember I played a bit in BFA. Actually, I went into raids with it as well, on top of arenas and a little bit of dungeons. The thing with Holy Priest, for me, okay, this is for me, and then we'll look a little bit at the analytics on the logs and Rare.io. So for me, it's boring. It's the classical healer archetype. You just have long casts. It has big heals, huge burst heals, pretty good tank heal, I would say. But
it does,
I don't know about Mythic Plus. It's I didn't feel good with it.
So the thing is, I've looked at some logs. Holy Priests are of 2 to 3 keys behind the top of behind Paladins, behind Shamans, and all of that. So it's not that bad. It's still 2 to 3 keys, but you can still push pretty high. And if you're like a +22 key pusher, you're obviously already playing the best spec in the game. So Holy Priest is not a bad spec, okay?
No, the
kit is not really made as much for dungeons as the other healers, and of course it has the biggest contender in Discipline Priest, because if you're playing a priest
that's the problem
and you
with
need to heal, it's Guardian Spirit though. Guardian is a really good tank healer, and we do need a lot of tank healing in Shadowlands, so that might be one of the biggest pluses that you can have as a Holy Priest.
Well, that's the thing. You put the nail in the coffin for it, I believe, because it has to compete with the Discipline spec, and it borrows all of the cons from Discipline, and I would put here like being quite immobile actually.
Yeah, same as Discipline.
But as opposed to Discipline, you can really go over healing with it, because it has big ass heals, long ass casts and stuff, and it's kind of limited to its own kit. So it's not bad, but
it can be good in situations where you're fighting Prideful, for instance, because the Mastery is what puts out probably the most amount of healing from Holy Priest, and that's the Echo of Light, where your heals are duplicated.
Yeah.
But if you're healing a target to the full HP, then that heal is essentially overhealed. But Prideful is that constant taking of damage.
I know.
So it can still be good, guys. I'm not saying you're not playing it. It's just that it's not as good as the others.
Let's just make it clear. All the specs that we're talking about here today can do decent, so don't worry about it. But taking a look at the performance in this week's logs and Resto.io,
it's actually the least popular healer in above 20. But that's the thing, guys. If you want to get your 15s done, you can definitely play Holy Priest.
No problem. So what would it? A C
from the logs, it seems like it's a C tier. C tier is a little bit weak. It's C tier kind of means like you have better options, but it's not bad. I think we leave D tier for like, okay, you probably shouldn't be playing this if you really want to push content. So it's not D tier. You can still push content with it.
No D tier. That's what it is, man. You can make an informed decision based on logs, but more preferably, we strongly recommend you play what you find is fun and make a decision on that. At some point, maybe you can play Holy Priest up until, I don't know, 15 or 16s, and then you want to push even higher, then maybe you would want to consider switching probably to Discipline.
You'll find that damage reduction is something that you might want.
Yeah. Okay, let's move along to our fourth on the list.
Mistweaver Monk, my dude.
Mistweaver, well, I don't know, man. There's two things about it. If you look at the logs right now, like in both Mythic Plus and on the Radar.io, like Mistweaver isn't seeing the best times. But
the thing is, it's very unpopular, but it still has Mistweaver still has a lot of throughput. It does have a lot of throughput.
I think it has the biggest throughput, like per heal.
Potentially, yes. It's at least it's hard to see this in dungeons because the meta is so volatile. But in raids, Mistweaver has one of the highest throughputs in the game right now.
For sure.
And the fun part about Mistweaver, which is if you like Mistweaver, then you have essentially, I think I've seen all of the builds being played in high dungeons. You can fist weave if that's your thing. That's certainly my thing. Fist weaving. You have upwelling, which is like essence font spam, which is Marcelian, and you also have the good old-fashioned focus standard. We're talking about the last tier talents, which kind of define the builds a little bit.
I want to add to this. This is super cool for healer spec because you can choose 3 different playstyles, all viable.
To get bored. And I mean, Mistweaver is still the most mobile healer in the game.
Of course, and strong cooldowns.
It's very high up there with Druid in terms of mobility. It has amazing throughput. It's unfortunately it's a little bit squishy. And
if you get hit by something like on your plus 15, you're pretty much
and I'm struggling to see how outside cleaving vivifies on your party you can deal with prideful damage sticks. Maybe that's why. Maybe that's what's keeping Mistweaver back, because it does have amazing tank healing. Cocoon is an amazing cooldown. Revival, although it's a little bit better in raids, it still dispels all of the shit and it heals everybody up, and that's pretty good.
It is.
And it's just an unpopular spell right now. So all of the analytics that we do, especially on Mistweaver, come from a very low amount of parses. People are not playing Mistweaver as much because there are other 2 killers that are extremely popular right now. So it's a little bit skewed. That doesn't mean it's not good. It's definitely seeing keys above 20, but it's just not there yet.
I mean, I would strongly recommend, if you were thinking about trying out a healer, I would strongly recommend Mistweaver. It's not hard to master, hard to get into. It does
smart heals,
it's pretty fun to play also, and you know it's the Monk fantasy. You cannot go wrong. Plus the utility, man, you know, Ring of Peace, in cap, all of that.
The debuff, if you don't have another monk in your team, then
Mystic
that's really
Touch,
good.
of course.
But that's the thing, because you have Windwalker that brings the debuff, and Windwalker is one of the best specs in the game right now.
Another situation.
That's probably why a lot of people don't play Mistweaver.
Exactly, but still, I would put it like between B and A with a strong edge to A, but still. See, we're judging it by the logs and Radar.io, and if you look at that, it's still a B.
The reason we're putting it in B is because it's not the same as Holy Priest. It has a couple of things that gives it an edge above Holy Priest. But the specs that are going to be in A tier are not, are not at the same level as Mistweaver. And
you'll see. Let's move along to the Druid family, Resto Druid. Oh man, Resto Druid. Now,
are you gonna get into it?
I'm gonna get into it. Yeah, I'm gonna get into it for sure. I've been, avoiding it all this time, but I will get into it. It just feels daunting because as a Druid in general, any spec, well, apart from the Guardian, you do have a lot of spells. You have to maintain all of your hots. And I think, so listen, my main concern when playing Resto Druid in our 10 plus keys is like, I will definitely miss a strong cooldown like I have on the Holy Paladin on the Displace. It doesn't have, you have Convoke, but that's on 2 minutes and...
Why I think you might actually enjoy Resto Druid is because it has a similar mentality to Discipline Priest in the sense that you have to prep for things. You have to, set things up, and once things are set up, you will explode. You have to keep a couple of huts up. Iron Bark is actually really good. I mean, you know about that.
That's the only thing,
it doesn't have, I mean... Yeah, it doesn't have a lot of group healing, but its kit was made for dungeons. That's why it's the most popular healer right now being played. It has the most amount of parses on Warcraft logs. And its kit just works. You can easily go damage. You can put a couple of huts.
That's cool. Yeah, that's
Wild growth, and then just go owl weaving. Owl weaving is a thing now.
And cat weaving too, if you want to. I mean, you can spec whatever. But owl weaving is much better, just because you know. The rats can really do some good damage, right? So still one of the most mobile healers, like strongly competing with on mobility with Mistweavers, and you know that's the thing. It's you said it best. Its kit works the best for groups in dungeons as well. My only concern is like the biggest burst. You have Iron Bark, of course. That's a really strong defensive cooldown, but outside that, there's Convoke, and there's no oh shit button, right?
You could trank, but trank requires a couple of seconds to build up. So if something hits your party and your party's like 10% HP and it will die in a couple of seconds, it's hard to save them if you haven't prepared up until that point. If you don't have obviously everybody in the efflorescence, obviously everybody having at least a rejuvenation on them and then popping trank or wild growth, then it's gonna be hard. This is a lot of conditions that you have to make, but if you do master that, you will be a literal god. So
where do we put this?
Okay, so
strong A tier?
Definitely stronger than it's almost S tier. It's just not there probably because mastery has been nerfed. If I'm not mistaken, it was nerfed in beta and hasn't been buffed since.
But still,
it has a lot of potential, and it has probably the most amount of versatility out of all the healers.
100%. Laid it down. All right, now on to the last contender.
Okay,
Flame's own healing spec.
I am so happy Resto Shaman is such a good spec in Shadowlands because I have been having probably the most amount of fun healing with it in BFA. It just wasn't really performing that well, and a couple of affixes kind of worked against Resto Shaman versus Grievous. I mean, you couldn't save people with Grievous if you use Spirit Link because you would give everybody Grievous that way.
Man, that was a pain, of course.
But the thing with Resto Shaman, guys, that you have to know, either if it's in raids or in dungeons, it has one of the best healer cooldowns in the game. Spirit Link can pretty much save anybody. It's extremely good. Cloud Burst Totem is one of the biggest AoE heals that you can have, and you have a lot of control over it if you can track it with a weak aura. You can build up to it, you can explode. Not to mention if you play it in Necrolords, as opposed to me, because I'm main enhancement. If you play with a Primordial Wave, you essentially have all Riptides on everybody, and you can cleave healing waves, which is good, which is kind of like how Mistweaver has a lot of AoE healing because of how Vivify cleaves on target. So it's kind of, that brings me to that kind of mechanic.
And don't forget about Manatide, man.
Oh, Manatide Totem, of course. You Mana Shield. It's probably one of the healers that can manage the mana the best. I know I haven't had any problems healing with my Resto until I've hit like 11s and 12s keys.
But that's still gear.
We can talk about gear as well, but obviously Earth Elemental is really good. Stun Totem, Earth Wall Totem,
I
Root
loved
Totem.
when you play with Elemental.
Oh, you'd love Boomy Trends, which it's another thing for another time. But Elemental is also really good to save your tank because tanks take a lot of damage in Shadowlands, guys. And with the conduit for the Earth Shield, with the Earth Shield being baseline right now, you can actually pump a lot more single target healing, which was one of the biggest issues with Resto Shaman. Maybe it's not there, like it's probably not the same as, let's say, Holy Paladin or Mistweaver or even Druid. But so far I've been able to heal like a couple of keys above 10, and I feel really good with it, even though I'm under geared. But it's fun. It's It's definitely one of the most popular healers right now.
And you would recommend it to people like trying to figure out like, hey, what healer should I get into? You recommend Resto Shaman?
Yeah, I recommend Resto Shaman. It has every spec is easy to get into. That's how Blizzard made the game. It's harder to master because it has a lot of tools. That's the thing. Once you get to master,
so many buttons, man.
It has a lot of buttons. So although Resto Shaman is one of the most popular right now, it has a 41.3% representation rate. At least at the time that we're doing this research on 20 keys and higher. It's in logs. It's very close to.
But it's still S tier.
It's still S tier. it can easily be better than the priest and the paladin. It's definitely played way more, but still it's a little bit below, just a tad, just a tad. If you look at the logs right now,
very tiny. Look at that difference. It's small.
It's probably because it doesn't have a lot of damage.
Yeah,
I thought it did, but it actually doesn't really have a lot of damage.
I mean, it's okay, but right now, when talking strictly about damage dealing from healers, you cannot really compete with Holy Paladin.
Yeah, it's very hard to compete with that
just
shit.
yet. We'll see how things develop further down the line. Yeah. But for the whole picture, based on the warcraft logs and the popularity on Radar.io, we have S tier Holy Paladin, this priest, Resto Shaman, then A tier Resto Druid, B tier Mistweaver Monk, and C tier Holy Priest. All specs are playable. You can have fun with them. This doesn't mean one, cannot work
very
for you.
high HPS. I've checked.
He checked.
The potential of you being able to actually heal people is above average with all of them. So they're pretty close. The reason we actually put them into 4 different tiers is so that you can see that there's actually a difference between priest and monk, for instance.
There are differences. But that being said, guys, we want to stress this out once again. We're basing this tier list on logs and Radar.io sometimes just to see how the performance is for that week in the meta. This is for Mythic Plus. This doesn't mean, once again, you cannot play any of these. By all means, we recommend playing any of these healers if you like them. Give them a try. You don't have a max level, try a class trial and make it work 100%. Like that. It's all about understanding how the meta is shifting. We like to do things like this and analyze what's up. We from the nature of what we do on this channel, like class guides, we have the opportunity to level a lot of these specs and play them out. And we like to see how all these specs do on a weekly basis in the meta. So we're doing this every Friday if you didn't notice already.
Stay tuned for more, But yeah, this has been this week's analysis of healers in Mythic Plus. Hope you found your spec in a good spot, and if it's not, then you have to know that you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine.
You're gonna be fine. Thank you to all the Patreons for supporting this type of content and the class guides and the Mocast podcast, which is coming really, really soon. We already have a couple of episodes recorded, pretty awesome guests as well. On top of some new things prepped along the way, but you will know that when the time comes. Our Twitch gang, Twitch subs, Twitch viewers, everybody on Discord, the admins, the mods. Thank you so much, guys. You make all of this Marcelian Online thing possible. And with that being said,
adieu and see you in the next one.
Weekend. I sing.
That was way better than what I said, man.
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.